everybody, welcome back to MediJet. Here we share tricks and explain topics to help ease the task of memorization and understanding. Tricks as well as concepts are spread throughout the video. If you're in a hurry, feel free to use the timestamps provided in the description to navigate yourself to a specific part of the video. For quicker access to MediJet videos, you may join our WhatsApp and Telegram group. The link is in the description. Without further ado, let's start today's video. Hello everybody, in this video we are going to cover the anterior neck muscle. Let's look at the sternocleidomastoid first. Sternocleidomastoid. So if you break this down into chunks, you obtain sterno, which is sternum, cleido, which is clavicle, and mastoid, which is the mastoid process. So the sternocleidomastoid is a two-headed muscle originating from the sternum as well as from the clavicle, inserting onto the mastoid. So let's look at the origin. It's a two-headed muscle originating from the sternum as well as the clavicle. To be specific, it originates from the manubrium of the sternum and the medial one-third of the clavicle, and it inserts onto the mastoid process. It has one more insertion, which is the superior nuchal line, which is on the occipital bone. Next, we move to the scalene muscles. We have three scalene muscles based on their relative positions with one another: anterior scalene muscle, middle scalene muscle, and posterior scalene muscle. Anterior scalene muscle originates from C3 to C6. Middle is C3 and you increase 1 from the anterior, which is 6 becomes 7. So C3 to C7. And the posterior scalene will go down. It will originate from C5 to C7. Anterior and middle will insert onto the first rib, while the posterior scalene is going to insert on the second rib. Next, we move to the longus capitis. The longus capitis is going to originate on C3 to C6 and it's going to insert on the occipital bone. Next, we have the longus colli. Longus colli originates on C3 to T3. The way I remember the origin and insertion of longus colli is that colli has two L's. So there is one letter that's repeating twice. Hence, in the origin, the number repeats. So you have C3 to T3. And in the insertion, the letter repeats, which is C1 to C6. Next, we have the platysma muscle. Platysma muscle is the most superficial muscle. So if you want to see the other muscles of the neck, you have to first remove the platysma because all the other muscles are underneath the platysma. The platysma is going to originate on the fascia of pectoralis major, which is the muscle that is found on the chest region, and the deltoid muscle, which is the muscle found on the shoulder region. And it's going to insert on the skin of the lower jaw or the skin of the mandible. Next, we have muscles that are associated with the hyoid bone. Muscles present beneath the hyoid bone are the infrahyoid, while muscles present above the hyoid bone are the suprahyoid. Let's start with the infrahyoid. We have four infrahyoid muscles. The sternum and the thyroid are two structures that are present beneath the hyoid bone. So the sternothyroid muscle is going to start on the sternum and insert on the thyroid cartilage, and the thyrohyoid, which is a continuation of the sternothyroid, is going to take it up from the thyroid cartilage and insert on the hyoid. So the sternothyroid originates on the manubrium, inserts on the thyroid cartilage. Next, we have the thyrohyoid, which continues the course of this muscle by originating on the thyroid cartilage where the sternohyoid had left and inserting onto the hyoid bone, which is the final destination. Next, we have the sternohyoid. Sternohyoid is a muscle that's going to originate on the sternum and directly insert on the hyoid. So the sternohyoid originates on the manubrium, inserts on the hyoid. The sternohyoid also originates on the sternoclavicular joint or the medial end of the clavicle. Next, we have the omohyoid muscle. The prefix omo is indicative of shoulder. Omohyoid can be divided into two parts, superior belly and inferior belly. the inferior belly is going to originate on the superior border of the scapula. So the inferior belly will originate on superior border of the scapula. And the superior belly is going to originate on the intermediate tendon, and they are going to insert on the hyoid bone. Next, we have the suprahyoid muscle. We have 4 suprahyoid muscles: digastric, mylohyoid, geniohyoid, and stylohyoid. I have a story to keep these 4 muscles in mind. There is a cat named Milo. Milo considered himself to be a genius, and Milo wanted to show off his style. To show off his style, he ate something that is not meant for cats, and he developed gastric issues. Now, what does this story signify? Milo is mylohyoid, genius is geniohyoid, style is stylohyoid, and gastric is digastric. So these are the 4 suprahyoid muscles. Now let's look at their origin and insertion points. Let's look at the digastric first. Di and gastric, which indicates di is 2, gastric is belly. So digastric has 2 bellies, an anterior belly and a posterior belly. Anterior belly is going to originate on the digastric fossa, which is very easy. And the posterior belly is going to originate on the mastoid notch, which is on the temporal bone. And they are going to insert onto the intermediate tendon. This is the only muscle of the suprahyoid group that is going to insert on the intermediate tendon. All others are going to insert on the body of hyoid. Now let's move to mylohyoid. Mylohyoid, it's inserting on the body of hyoid, while it originates on the mylohyoid line. Next we have let's leave the geniohyoid for now. Let's look at the stylohyoid. Stylohyoid will originate on the styloid of the temporal bone, and it inserts on the body of the hyoid. Now let's go to geniohyoid. This is the only one that has a different origin point. The trick I use to keep in mind that the mental spine is the origin of the geniohyoid is that genio in our trick was genius, and people who are genius are mentally advanced. Therefore, mental spine, mentally advanced, genius. So the mental spine is going to be the origin of the geniohyoid, and like the others, it's going to insert on the body of the hyoid. One important point that must be kept in mind is that digastric and geniohyoid are the main depressors of the mandible that are going to depress the mandible or help in opening of the mouth. So this is an overview of today's video. I hope this video was helpful. That's all we have for today. Thank you.